But I will tell you this, he's a pretty good showman because, boy howdy, there's a way to put your show on a cliffhanger. Just side note, Monster energy drinks are everywhere in this game. Like, your canteen, they say, is filled with Monster energy. When Norman Reedus gets into the shower, his show from AMC Ride is like over where his butt would be. It's a weird game. It's Kojima. There's got to be some checks in here to see if this succeeds, because this is not going to, like, in reality, I say that talking about a fantasy role-playing game, but generally common sense would say that every single time I am not going to successfully have my Hawk familiar drop a bag of holding into the other bag of holding, and it just works every time.
This goes back to episode 1.
Oh boy.
With the peasant railgun.
Oh. Alex, are you feeling particularly alive or dead today?
Pretty dead, Nathan. I would like to pass out and take a nice long turn nap.
Okay, well, I'll try to find a good plot for you, and we'll get you all settled in. Yeah. Do you like a nice thick layer of dirt for a blanket?
I'd like some moss.
Moss? Okay, I will, you know what? I'm gonna try to propagate some moss, so we'll be all set. Terrific.
Yes.
However, for the moment, we are both awake and fairly alive, and welcome. And since we are, I can welcome everybody to Total Pebble Knockdown. My name is Nathan.
I am Alex.
And we have quite a show for you today that will involve us being upright for a little while longer. Something happened in, I guess, a Weekly Muse for us, because I just found out about it, and you just found out about it. Our chat in Discord started rolling along, talking about something that happened on Critical Role. Now, you and I don't really watch the current campaign of Critical Role. I don't know if you've seen any of it.
I don't think so.
No.
I'm just not really a fan of listening or watching people play D&D as much, so.
Right, I understand that. Me, I'm a little bit more of an Adventure Zone person myself, but I have seen, like, the ending of, I think, the first campaign, because I was kind of wondering how they're going to wrap up this very large thing, and it was right around the time I was trying to, you know, do my own podcast, and I wanted to have some idea of how this actually works. So I'm a little familiar with some of the one-shots and stuff like that, but I really haven't been paying attention to the campaign. It's a big investment for me. We are going to get into some spoilers a little bit later, but I want to go into some of the basics of what chat was talking about that results from this. So let me do the smart thing of actually pulling up our chat. Basically, I think it was Helicity had mentioned this, that it was getting his jimmies rustled.
Yes.
But there was a conversation going around following this episode of Critical Role that was talking about Matt Mercer. And if you don't know, Matt Mercer is the DM, the kind of like perma DM of Critical Role, and is usually known as, well, I think we can say the most famous DM currently working.
Probably. Oh, currently, I was going to say Gary Gygax.
Oh, yeah, no, but in the current space, I think that Matt Mercer probably famous, and maybe Brennan Lee Mulligan close behind. But he's kind of the one that's well known, and maybe Griffin McElroy, just because of Adventure Zone. But at any rate, Matt Mercer, very well known in the space. And there was this whole tweet thread that Helicity brought up where someone was saying that Matt Mercer is a terrible DM. And
right. So that makes you go, okay, now why? Why? Is he a terrible DM?
So this is the Twitter thread as it's written. Matt Mercer.
I'm sure there's a screenshot here.
There's a screenshot. Helicity has given a screenshot. I can use this. Great. But anyway, Matt Mercer is a terrible DM. The response back is, no, players honestly need consequences. Response back, again, consequences don't just have to be death. Any good DM knows this. response, so you think PCs should never die, truly? And then the response back to that is this fascinating piece. Not what I said. PCs shouldn't permadie unless the player is okay with it. You can impose other consequences than death on your players. Debt to whoever revives them, for instance. Okay.
I believe we've had a conversation about this type of thing before on the show.
Probably.
Not specific to Critical Role, but like killing players or killing characters. Not don't kill players. Please don't kill players. Killing their characters.
you rolled bad and you will face the consequences.
So I guess this gets into minor spoiler territory ahead. So,
yeah.
If you don't want any spoiler on what's going on, skip ahead to whatever Nathan puts in.
Yeah.
To tell you where to skip ahead to.
Right.
In post.
In post. This will be done in post. I'll figure out a time code.
Yeah, there you go.
But anyway, okay, so this is basically the upshot is that in the current Critical Role campaign, a few of the players got knocked down, and they probably won't be getting up again. Somebody did indeed keep them down. That's how the Chumbawamba song works now.
That's how Chumbawamba works.
They took...
Yeah. So apparently, a couple of the party members have died, and another one of the party members might be having a death saving throw.
Yes.
Left, and then one other party member seems to be incapacitated by their own power.
Yeah.
So there's a spoiler.
Yeah.
We're not going to tell you who. You got to watch to find out.
Yeah, no.
An article.
Yeah, we're not. If you are interested, I will link an article about it down below that I got my information from. But yeah, basically a lot of people not in great shape, and then kind of a cliffhanger, which honestly, you know, obviously they're going to do a cliffhanger, because if I was in the middle of a kind of combat where all of that was happening, my first thought would be, oh, before we resolve this, let's pause and come back for next week. And realistically, I mean, next week's audience is going to be huge for this.
Yeah.
It's regardless of what happens now, because they want to see what happens. And look, there's possibilities, like they're mentioning, that they might figure out a way around this, because they do have like clerics and stuff in their party, so they can theoretically revivify some people if they need to, and try to work this out. But it's not looking great. It's not a great shape for them to be in. Okay, so that being said, out of spoiler territory,
somewhere before now is out of spoiler territory.
Yeah,
we're clear now.
We're now out. We're completely in the clear of spoiler territory. So let's get back to the actual point here that this brings up, which is really about the idea of character death and what that actually entails. Is it permanent? What happens afterward? And more importantly, I guess in this relation, is Matt in the right here, or
is Matt a terrible DM for this?
Is Matt a terrible DM for this? I'm gonna let you answer that before I talk.
Oh, is that the question you want me to answer?
Yeah, is Matt a terrible DM?
Judging by the fact this is what, campaign 3?
Third season, yeah.
Of a very, very popular live play, or, you know.
Yeah.
By all accounts, he is not a terrible DM. By all accounts, he may actually be a fantastic DM. Because if you can get people this riled up and get the audience this excited and your players that invested into a story where you suddenly incapacitated half the party and it's part of the story going ahead, and you leave that on a cliffhanger, that's really well done, I think.
Yeah, I think the thing is, like, I've seen Matt DM, and he's a terrific DM. I know why he does this all the time. More importantly, the crew that he works with on Critical Role has been with them for, this is the same crew. The basic core cast is the same cast that they've had since the beginning. They started this because it was fun for a bunch of these nerdy-ass voice actors, as they refer to themselves as, to get together and play Dungeons & Dragons. They've done this for multiple campaigns. They've done this through multiple characters. They've had very tragic storylines in the past. I don't for a second think that any of the players that were coming into this thought to themselves, oh, Matt's gonna give us softballs this time, because they've never had those. Mercer, like, I remember when they were talking to me about, like, you know, running games and styles that people have, they were like, you don't necessarily have to go full Matt Mercer, which means that the characters themselves have to, like, keep track of information. Like, the players have to, like, keep notebooks, because if they don't remember, then their characters don't remember. It's intense stuff. Like, there's rules, but the players that he has know what those rules are.
Yeah, that's as per any table you join. There are rules with your DM and your group, even if they're not, like, said, but it's like, all right, like, when you guys are playing with me, it's like, I expect you guys to remember what's happening.
Right.
And recap. And if not, I can give you a recap, but you guys should remember what you guys had going on.
Right. And you also assume that if I'm going to do something particularly wacky, 1, I have to be able to justify it, and 2, realize it probably won't work. Like... We don't know. Yeah, I always assume that when I'm working with anybody, that either if I'm running things, that they're going to have a fairly good idea of what I do, and if I'm in a game, that I'd have a fairly good idea of what someone else running does. But I mean, that's a lot of session 0, or just knowing the people, or working with them over a long period of time. Yeah, so we had a good little run of a chat in Discord where we were talking a little bit about that. Helicity's comment, I think, about so Mercer let the dice fall where they may, is a pretty good one. The other point that I think Helicity made was that this is a conversation about people doing wrong fun. You're having fun wrong. Don't do it. And the other point, which is a very good point to make, is that you're playing Dungeons & Dragons. The risk of death is not only implied, but explicitly part of the mechanics. There's literally death saving throws in this game. And
even to say ignore death saving throws as a mechanic, you need something there to kind of be attention giver. You need something to have at stake. And if it's not death in your campaign, if, for instance, Crave was saying to me before we recorded, like, you know, kind of like playing a game on easy mode versus a hardcore mode, maybe death is not something at stake in your game. So there has to be something else that is at stake. So maybe it's not death you're worried about. Maybe you can reincarnate. Maybe you can come back from the dead. Maybe you have an afterlife and you live on through the afterlife and can come back or something. Doesn't matter what your game does. There has to be something at stake to make risking things worth it.
Yeah, the thing that he was saying before dice falling where they may is that in the context of the story, basically, they took on something that was very powerful, had a chance to bail, and they chose not to. So the players made a choice. And they realized that there was going to be risk associated with it.
That's like the example I've given before, where I've told you about that boar.
That it was
like
Hephaestus.
Rag on me about. But it's
Hephaestus,
like I had no. This is a game I DM'd years ago.
Oh, okay.
I had 2 party members out of 8 decided they wanted to go off and go hunting, and they found a dire boar. And I informed them that let them make some checks to see if they thought they could handle it. And they passed their checks, and I was like, yeah, you feel like you get the idea that this thing is kind of powerful, and like, it probably could hurt you a whole lot, as it's a rather big boar, you know, kind of a DM nudge to, you probably don't want to fuck with this thing. It could probably kill you.
Yeah.
But the players decided, after, you know, giving them that knowledge, they, in character, decided, no, we got this. Which is fine. If your characters are full of that bravado, that's your choice. If that's what your character wants to do, go for it. Sure.
Yep.
You know, but you're going to live with the consequences. And, you know, when the boar happens to roll a critical hit and max out its damage on your second or third level characters, it hurts and may perhaps murder them.
But hey, I mean, in one D&D rules, your players might have still been alive after that.
Yeah, with that, they might be alive because the DM can't. Right.
Here's a question I always wondered about with that story. If the players that had gone off on their own, after you informed them that this is a very dangerous boar, if they had tried to get the rest of the party and come back, would they have fared a pretty good chance of living through that? Would the boar be able to take on the whole party?
I mean, they'd have a lot more players. They had like 8 people.
Oh!
So, there'd be a very good chance that they could have handled that boar.
Yeah.
Even so, they poisoned their arrows and pretty much killed the boar anyways, but it was delayed death.
Right. Got it.
They did murder it.
But they also got murdered. Yeah.
I mean, maybe I just said it got murdered.
Yeah.
Like from the poison.
From the poison, yeah.
But it gored them good. Anyways.
Yeah.
I did.
They could have run away after they poisoned the boar.
Sure.
They
charged them. They chose to have one of them hide behind the other one of them.
Yeah, that didn't work out very well.
When you're slender elves, it does not work.
You get skewered.
You are not a meat shield.
They are elf kebabs.
Very much so.
Yeah. This does make me remind me a little bit of that genre that we don't really like to talk about. But there are a couple versions of Souls-likes that actually do talk about like death and what happens when you come back from it. Chronos, Before the Ashes, which is supposed to be like a prequel to Remnant. What they do is that if you do die at any point while you're playing the game, you come back, but you like age a year every time you do, and that will actually affect what maximums for different stats will be. Like your strength can be higher when you're younger, but your wisdom can be higher when you're older. And so you have to figure out, like, you know, okay, I'm going to have certain prerequisites if I do this when I'm young, but if I keep dying, I'm going to get older and I'm going to have to change my playstyle around. There's also Sifu, which I remember came out just this year, which is another one where you're in, like, you know, an actual, like, martial arts sort of kung fu beat 'em up. But when you die, you gain years, and it becomes harder for you to execute the actual moves as you're going forward, because you're getting older, and you're not quite as spry as you used to be. And and if you get to a certain age, and you get knocked out again, you die of old age.
I don't like games that make it harder for you for failing.
You don't like Demon Souls? Okay.
No, I don't. We've talked about that, but that's not
Circle of the Moon.
Tangential to this.
No, except for what other kinds of things you could do besides death. I don't mind the idea of doing something after death. We might talk about that on a future episode, about like the afterlife or other realms or what might happen to your party if you do have a total party kill. But I mean, death still has to kind of be on the table for you, because... Yeah. My point that I had put forward is, like, if death is going to be off the table, are these dragons made of Nerf foam? Like, you know, you can't really say that this is a dangerous and exciting world if there aren't going to be consequences for, you know, engaging with that world. So to answer the question of that particular tweet thread, I suppose what we're saying is no, Matt is not a terrible DM, but I will tell you this, he's a pretty good showman, because boy howdy, there's a way to put your show on a cliffhanger. Especially
just for this specific example, I would say that this is planned out.
Yeah.
Even though the dice may have decided the fates of these characters,
Yeah.
for that, but it was planned out to be very tough and potentially kill players, I assume, and to leave it on this very tense and emotional spot. In that case, it's tremendous amounts of planning and forethought.
Yeah.
And on his players' counts, it's tremendous amounts of going for it and sticking to their guns.
Yep.
To try and get the outcome they want.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure it could have gone entirely different. Maybe the entire party could have gotten killed.
Yeah.
Or maybe they could have just taken out this really powerful thing with really good rolls.
Yeah.
For instance, you know?
Yeah.
Who knows how it could have swung? But, like, if you're designing an encounter to be this type of difficult, then you're going to have interesting results no matter what. And there will be a fantastic story to tell from it regardless.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I did mention, but in the words of famed philosopher Tony Stark, part of the journey is the end. So your characters may eventually come to an end, but the very fact that people seem to care so much for characters does speak a lot to the importance and the storytelling that led up to that, of how those characters developed. And in part, the reason that happened is because of the DM who happens to be running the game. The players, yes, but also the DM has a hand in building that character up. So if you like that character, and you're worried about that character, realize that the DM is one of the reasons why that happened. So, anyway, we'll be interested. Maybe if something cool happens on the next episode, we might do a follow-up. But we don't usually talk about Critical Role because we're not knowledgeable about it like other people. But since it was presented to us in the Discord, we thought we would talk about it.
And since it's an interesting topic this time.
It is.
But if you have thoughts, arguments on this thought of ours, get at us in the comments, yell at us, tell us we're wrong, tell us you can DM incorrectly.
Yes, actually, I'd be interested in examples that you would like to give of what DMing incorrectly is for you.
DMing incorrectly for me is having your DM speak for you, and then so every time you get into a counter and you choose to run away, and the DM's like, no, I'm just gonna knock you guys out and do Sex Machina you. That's bad DMing. That's
bad DMing. You know what I consider bad DMing? Handing out inspiration based on who brought the best snacks.
I think that's great DMing.
Okay, fine. Never mind.
You know, they should bring snacks.
Okay,
Treat
fine.
your DM to snacks. That's bribery 101.
If you get the best snacks, they'll give you a ring of spell storing.
I don't think that's true.
Well, you never know. In delving deeper news, I wanted to talk to you about a game that I happen to be playing and a mechanic that I found quite interesting in that particular game.
Yes.
Now, I should probably explain to you what I'm talking about.
Yes, and everybody else too.
Yeah, okay, so recently I started playing a little bit of a game called Death Stranding. Now, in case you're not familiar with Death Stranding, it is a Hideo Kojima game. This is like the first one that he made through his own development house since he's gotten away from Konami. And it has a pretty stellar, like, A-list cast, and it was a little bit different than people probably thought.
Yeah, they didn't know he was as weird as they thought it could be.
Well, I mean, anyone who played the Metal Gear franchise probably already had an inkling, but the general storyline is that you are in this world that is like kind of ruined and has a lot of these invisible shadow creatures that are trying to kill everybody. Stalking the landscape and, rapidly increasing time and, like, these anomalies around it. And basically, you, as your main character, the Norman Reedus in this particular case, it's not the character's name, but the actor. But anyway, Norman Reedus, basically, is this porter that is tasked with taking deliveries from one installation to another to try and reconnect the world back together. the main mechanic in the game, which I think is really the sticking point that kind of divided people on how they felt about it, was walking.
Yes.
There's a lot of walking involved.
One could call it a walking sim, but I feel like you'll get into more information about this.
Yeah, so I actually wanted to address that, because I will have a longer Titanium Mind talking about the game overall, but the walking sim thing is, I feel like a very big misnomer when it comes to Death Stranding, having played it and having played my fair share of actual walking sims. Because when I think about a walking sim, I think about What Remains of Edith Finch, Dear Esther, Firewatch, you know, that kind of stuff. And those are games. I'll tell you the difference, basically. Those are games where there is a narrative through line, and the way you experience that narrative through line is through the act of walking. The point of the game is to go through the narrative. Walking is basically your conduit to get from point A to point B. The difference with Death Stranding is that walking is actually the main mechanic of the game. The whole gameplay is based around you figuring out how to get from this installation to this installation, over hills, over rocky surfaces, over rivers and streams, and mountains, etc. And so, not just getting your packages that are weighing you down over this very rough terrain, but also how am I going to climb up or down this landscape by using, you know, climbing gear and your ladders and, different post boxes and stuff like that. Yes.
I have the idea. We're gonna use an ornithopter.
You know what? I don't think there's an ornithopter in the game.
Well, if there was, solve all the problems.
Yes. Until those guys with guns come and start shooting at you. There are guys with guns.
Bombs.
Okay. You know, I have gotten to a point where you do get a kind of...
bomber, if you will.
Ooh, that's fun. I have gotten to the point where they are experimenting with a grenade that's supposed to, repel these mean spirit things. So they are introducing some weaponry at this point.
Good.
But anyway, and also, by the way, eventually you do get, like, a bike and other, like, vehicles, so it does make it easier to get across the landscape, but you do still have to figure out how you're putting down bridges and how you're going to have trails so that your bike can get from point A to point B. But mostly for the first, like, 5 or 6 hours of the game, you're pretty much hoofing it directly from point A to point B. Now, what I wanted to talk to you about is the idea, or maybe the criticism, of walking as a main mechanic in the game. And I'll tell you a little bit of how they implement this in a little more detail, because there's weight requirements that your character can actually hold on to, and you can take on multiple packages. You can find other packages throughout the world that have been dropped by other players, and you can pick those up. As you increase weight and the weight on your back or on your suit gets higher, it becomes harder for you to keep balanced. Which means that if you're on, like, rocky terrain and you make a turn, you have to right yourself to avoid falling over by doing button presses, almost like it's a QuickTime event.
Okay.
To make sure that you can right yourself, or I guess left yourself, depending on what direction you're going in. It's very easy to stumble over the landscape. What they also do is they have a scanner that will show you, with a little color-coded thing, what is more tricky terrain or dangerous terrain, even if they're the little tiny pebbles that happen to be in your way, and we know a thing or two about pebbles. But yeah, and you will actually have a total pebble knockdown if you get onto these pebbles without shoring yourself up. There are points in the game too where, as long as your hands are free, you can actually kind of like, put your hands onto your vest so that you don't have to worry about swaying off, but it makes you slower. And so if you have anything time sensitive, it makes it harder for you to actually get there in a time frame that works. So now you got to think about, like, the pros and cons. When you actually have the stealthy sections, because the big shadow creatures can sense you. You have to think about breath control, because they can, like, sense your breath, so you have to hold your breath. You have to navigate around. The little sensor will give you an idea where the invisible creatures are and kind of bleep. You're also still going over that terrain, and the rain is coming down and degrading your packages while you're doing that. So, now you have a lot of different things. So, like I said, this is not like a walking simulator like we think of. There's a lot of mechanics that are going into this.
Almost like Hideo Kojima went, how can we make walking extreme?
And he pretty much did that. Walking in this game is a very trepidatious thing. You can ford across streams, but you have a stamina meter, and it will run out really quickly when you're fording through those streams. Running is an option, but as you get more weight on you, your stamina decreases faster as you're going forward. It makes it harder for you to walk. You are slower. These things factor in. Weight factors in. There's even a mechanic where your boots degrade over time, and you might have to fashion yourself new ones, because it's the only piece of equipment you need to fashion, or just your boots. No other armor, just your boots.
Just one crafting. It's your shoes.
It's your shoes.
One could say you are a cobbler.
You are a cobbler.
Cobble them together.
Sponsored by Ride on AMC and Monster Energy. I'm sorry. Just side note. Monster Energy drinks are everywhere in this game. Like, your canteen, they say, is filled with Monster Energy. When Norman Reedus gets into the shower, his show from AMC Ride is like over where his butt would be. It's a weird game. It's Kojima. What do you want? I was telling you earlier, there's a character in this with a black skull for the mask that he wears over his head that's just called Die Hard Man. Okay, just go for it, Kojima. I don't care. But the fact of the matter is that the walking mechanics in the game ended up being a lot more extreme than you would think of for a walking simulator. Because I never had to worry about any of this stuff in a walking simulator the way I've played.
Yeah, they're generally very casual games.
Yes, they're there pretty much just to allow you to move through the landscape and explore that landscape. It's
exploration of the environment. It's not, oh my god, I need to climb this mountain, and I need to figure out where to place my ladder, and my package is falling apart, and my shoes just ripped a hole in them.
Yeah, and now I tripped, and 3 of my packages fell off, and now I have to go and see if I can collect them before they degrade, because if they degrade too much, I don't really get much credit for them when I actually bring them to the site that they're supposed to go to. So it's a little bit different between, the exploration of a landscape and the actual traversal mechanics of a landscape. So the point that I'm trying to get to is that I'm trying to pinpoint if this is a good idea or a bad idea, because it does feel like when Death Stranding was released and people started playing it, this seemed to be the major point of contention for people. Whether they loved it or they hated it, seemed to be relative to, do I like this as a central mechanic of the game? The actual movement of your character being centralized to the game. I mean,
honestly, Mario, the central mechanic is movement. Actually, the central mechanic is jumping.
Yeah.
Classic Mario. People love Mario, so...
It's true.
If you're gonna have a whole game based around jumping, I don't see why this is a big issue.
Right. I guess the jumping is usually seen as a more interesting thing than walking.
Sure. Okay, well, it's like drunk walk simulator.
It's like Mario, but he's been on a bender and he can't really jump that high. And so he's like, it's me, Mario. And he kind of stumbles through the landscape. And now the jumping part that you have to do is over the tiny little rocks that are in your path going forward. The actual building of the landscape, where you're actually putting up the ladders and stuff like that, that's a little bit more part of Death Stranding particularly. You don't really do that in a Mario, so to speak. But, and Mario does have combat. I mean, you have to jump on top of the heads of all the little creatures. And there is combat, I guess, I should say, there is indeed combat and enemies to fight in Death Stranding, but it's not really the centralized thing that you do. In similar fashion to the fact that Mario, the centralized thing that you do is the platforming, of jumping and hopping and stuff like that. Do we get down too much into the minutia of these mechanics, though? Like, when we're actually playing this, is it a good idea in a game to say that I have to think about every little rock that's in my way? Or have we gotten to the point where now it's just going to slow down or hinder the game because this is now the focus? The little rock, the little pebble in my way is now the central antagonist to my game in this moment. Is that too much?
If that's what the focus is, then no, I don't think that's too much. I mean, it may not be for everyone, but if your central mechanic is keeping yourself balanced and, like, getting from point A to point B traversal and dealing with the stuff in the way, then it makes sense. I mean, maybe not every tiny pebble, but, like, if you're on a rocky trail, like, it's almost like if you had a game and it was just focused on hiking. And you start off easy on, like, a well-traveled path, and you get to a part where you're scrabbling hands and feet up a mountainside. You know?
Yeah.
There are people who would enjoy that, and then there are people who would fucking hate it.
It's true. I have not played that game. What was it? Insurmountable? That's actually about the mountain climbing?
That's nothing like that.
It's not. Okay. Well, you can speak to experience. I have it, but I have not played it.
It's interesting. It's an interesting game. Play it sometime. It's a roguelite.
Oh, okay. So that is a little bit different.
But it's also resource management and like tactical.
Oh, okay. Yes.
It's interesting. It's not bad though.
Okay. Good to know. At some point, I'll try it. One of the interesting things, though, that I did find from a design perspective about Death Stranding in that regard is that as you like increase in level and stuff, you will notice that other players have put down elements in the game that you can utilize to make it easier for you to get through it. So you'll be going across the landscape and find that another player has conveniently left this ladder that you can utilize, and then you can tell them, I liked the ladder. The currency in this game is basically likes. I like the ladder, thank you for the ladder, sir. And then you can utilize it. Because the larger theme of the Kojima game, at least in this, if we were talking about the larger philosophical theme, is the idea that out of a ruined world, it can really only be rebuilt by the collective actions of the whole. So, yeah, so as other people add elements, it becomes easier for the next player to traverse that landscape going forward. So that's an interesting idea, and trying to figure out how to like cross a chasm or anything like that is neat. It's definitely unlike anything that I've ever played. I just didn't think that I was going to be playing a game where seeing like some rocks in my way was going to cause anxiety. I didn't think that was going to be the central mechanic. Like, literally, later on in the game, I was on my bike, and, like, I'm screaming past, like, these, I think they're called mules. They're like, mercenaries that are out there shooting at me, and I wasn't worried about them. I was worried because it looked like there was a cliff face coming up, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I can make that. Am I going to go into a rock? Oh god, no. How am I going to get across that stream? Yeah, I get it, there's guys shooting at me, whatever. But that stream looks awfully deep. I don't know if I can get across that. So, I guess kudos to Hideo Kojima for making me more scared of terrain than of the dudes shooting at me.
Yeah. The rocks were the real big, bad, evil guys all along.
Yep, the big, boulder, evil guy. Perfect. Anyway, I'd be interested to hear everybody else's thoughts on this. Do you think that terrain is actually something that needs to be contentious? Should I, in a game, decide that the landscape itself is the enemy?
Think Death Stranding 2 Electric Boogaloo needs to be non-Euclidean.
Oh boy. I thought you were going to say that we should electrify the entire landscape.
No, even better. Death Stranding 2, non-Euclidean geometry.
Oh god.
Now your anxiety comes from, does that staircase go up or down? Fuck.
Yeah. I just want my next Death Stranding to be designed by MC Escher.
Yeah, non-Euclidean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enjoy the endless staircase, Norman Reedus. You'll enjoy. You go through one door, you come out the other, your packages fall down immediately.
That brings us right into the next segment, too.
Hey, how's that? Okay, mechanically speaking, we are going to talk about bags of holding, because...
Everybody loves a good bag of holding.
Everybody loves a big bag of holding. So, when we were tooling around Reddit recently, I found something kind of interesting. A question, a query of sorts, which was how to stop combat from revolving around a tactical nuke. Needing advice. Okay, we'll see what we can do to accommodate. One of my players is an artificer with the Find Familiar spell. He keeps making 2 bags of holding and then making his Hawk Familiar drop one into the other. Of course, that only works once a long rest, but I can't do double fights all the time. That would just annoy the other players. We'll get back to that in a second. We've tried sneaking up on them, worked 2 turns until a shove action was followed by the nuke. I've tried a pack of creatures, wiped out half of them, combat was easy after that. I'm out of ideas. They're level 3, by the way, so a lot of magic is a no-go to avoid a party wipe, if possible. There was a little bit to give a little bit more context, because I'm sure you can give me some context, but I did find a thing that might help explain what's going on here for people who are like, what do you mean a bag of holding goes into another bag?
So if you're looking at the rules for bag of holding, if you put a bag of holding into another bag of holding, it basically explodes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what they're saying, is placing a bag of holding inside an extra-dimensional space.
And a bag of holding is an extra-dimensional space.
Yeah, instantly destroys both items and opens a gate to the astral plane.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so it's and then what? The gate originates where the one item was placed inside the other. Any creature within 10 feet of the gate is sucked through it to a random location in the astral plane. The gate then closes. It is one way only and can't be reopened. From the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Sure. So first thing I have to say is, if they're having issue figuring out what to throw at the players, may I suggest creatures from the astral plane.
Yeah, that's true. You open up the astral plane, there is the possibility that you might have creatures from the astral plane that you then have to fight. If it's one way,
or later on, what you have is creatures from the astral plane come to find you because you've been sending all manner of other creatures that do not belong there. Oh. And they're really upset about this.
Yeah, that's fair, that's fair.
Stop shitting on my lawn. We're here to give you a bill.
Fair enough, yeah. This is the fuck around and find out of Bag of Holding Astral Plane-ology. Here's the thing that I'm trying to figure out, though. What is stopping the players from getting sucked into the astral plane?
Being far enough away.
Okay. Okay. Well, then...
It's like a 10-foot radius or something like that?
Well, then what you want to do is make sure that the creatures that you send after them are really fast and always in melee combat. Right? Because if they're close enough to the players, then they can't really pull that trick off without also risking getting sucked into the astral plane.
Yeah, so having players do something like this is an interesting conundrum, because ideally what you should do is talk to the in this case, talk to the problem player
about
what they're doing. Because if it's kind of upsetting the balance of the entire party and kind of making everything you throw at them just a piece of cake, it's like, all right, listen, there's one of two things we can do. I can throw even harder things at you. I can throw, there's a couple. You can throw harder things at them. You can work around it and make it null and void, taking away the player's agency, or you can find a workaround with the player to make it so that, okay, I understand this is the thing you like to do, but it's kind of memey, and like, it's taking away anything else we can do. So either you need to stop doing this, use it less often, or we need to work something out together, like to make this so you can't do it as often. It's kind of like with your character becoming a werewolf.
Yeah.
Or
rat.
my player became a werewolf, and that's super were-rat. Or in my case, were-tiger. Like, lycanthropy can be super OP, but if you and the player are in agreement where they're not going to just whip it out every single time they're in combat, if they have control over it, then it's not OP. It is like, alright, well now I can give you tough boss battles that you can go up against with your, lycanthropy form to make that a more intense fight.
Right.
But, like, if you're gonna whip it out every single fight and make it so that, I just can't take damage, it's like, alright, you're fighting kobolds. I go into hybrid form! It's like, alright, cool, they can't do anything to hurt you, go fucking murder.
Right. I kept thinking to myself that were that ever to come into play, I think Max's whole thing is that he never really ended up going into like a hybrid form unless he had absolutely lost control altogether, and then automatically goes into hybrid form, and then it's just like it's a free-for-all at that point because there's nothing that he can do. But that he doesn't voluntarily do it because he wouldn't want to. But the one other thing I'm trying to figure out is, so they got an artificer in the party, and they can replicate magic items, but I'm trying to figure out, like, I don't really remember, but I don't know if technically an artificer can create two of the same magic item, or if you'd have to have like two artificers. Because one of the posts that I'm looking at was mentioning that with the artificer's replicate magic item feature being able to create bag of holding, in theory two artificers could each multi-class each create a bag of holding. One would use a third level spell slot to cast catapult to throw an open bag of holding in front of a creature. Then the other artificer would do the same except target the open bag of opening, which would create a portal into the astral plane. But
I think you would need to succeed a pretty decent aiming for that.
That's a dex saving throw, isn't it? Like,
no, I mean to make this small item hit that other small item in the opening. To be like, all right, cool. That's like a DC 18.
Yeah.
And if you miss, suddenly the enemies have your two bags of holding.
Right. I mean, catapult, if I remember that spell, I think that's like a ranged spell attack. Like you make some little rocks and you can catapult the rock forward. Or no, wait, catapult, I think you can move an object and you can choose to catapult it like telekinetically across the landscape.
Sure, I would just mage hand that shit.
Yeah, I think you could do a mage hand pretty easily too.
Yeah.
That would
the point is, you've got a player who keeps making tactical nukes by dropping a bag of holding from his familiar into another bag of holding. One way you can circumvent this is have, somebody in town has noticed you doing this.
Yeah.
And they're replicating it, and it's not going well because they're using it to kill, like, guards or to thieve or something else like that. Suddenly you doing this makes you look really sussy.
Yeah, you just have like an ancient order of artificers.
Ancient order of the bag.
Ancient order of artificers. AAA. No, AOA. 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 The ancient order of artificers that all they do is they make the bags of holding. And then they just keep chucking the bags of holding into each other, and they're basically a terrorist organization at that point. That's right. I can't wait for them. A secret society of artificers. That can't be bad at all. This is the other thing that I'm wondering, though. Okay, so the hawk drops the bag of holding into the other bag of holding. Okay, the hawk does have some stats. Shouldn't the hawk still succeed on, like, a dexterity roll or something? Like an aiming roll? Shouldn't...
In theory, yeah, it's a small target.
Yeah, shouldn't you be able to say, okay, you have to roll over a 15 or something if you're, like, this high up trying to get the damn bag into the other bag? Yeah. Like, and if it misses, now there's just 2 bags of holding just sitting out there in the middle of nowhere that you gotta go collect.
That is not something I would let a player just say, yeah, my hawk drops his bag into another bag. It's like, alright, well, the first bag is stationary. The second one is you dropping it from a height of, like, 100 feet. It's like, roll for that.
Yeah, and hey, you know what? If you succeed, terrific. You get to do your thing. That's nice. But that there's got to be some checks in here to see if this succeeds. Because this is not going to, like, in reality. I say that talking about a fantasy role-playing game. But generally, common sense would say that every single time, I am not going to successfully have my hawk familiar drop a bag of holding into the other bag of holding, and it just works every time.
This goes back to episode 1.
Oh boy.
With the peasant railgun.
Oh, that was episode 2, but yes.
Episode 2, whatever, electric boogaloo. It goes back to, like, our first couple episodes where we talked about the peasant railgun concept. Yeah. Where, like, if you have a player who does something like this, it can be like, once is good, twice is too much.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to have a player who pulls this out, who sets this up masterfully and does it, and you're just like, you know what, I'm gonna let you get away with this one time. It's ridiculous. It shouldn't actually happen, and there's no way you're gonna do this again. If they started doing that every single time you got into a combat encounter, line up the peasants. You know, it would be like, all right, listen.
Yeah. Not happening.
You need to stop.
Yeah.
Or all these peasants are gonna, like, beat the shit out of you.
Right.
Now you're just trying to get, like, free slave labor from them.
That's right. Or, this is what I would do. You keep coming across abandoned towns.
Yeah.
You don't ever you are no longer interacting with any NPCs. But what if I want gear? Too damn bad.
Even better is either you need to pay every single peasant that you got.
Yep.
And they demands compensation.
10 gold.
Or you need to go through and do charisma check to individually convince each one to help you. Something like that. It's like, all right, if you're gonna insist on doing this and don't want to work with me, it's like, I'm gonna make it so that you doing this is an inconvenience to you.
Yeah, you have to do an inspirational speech. You have to do the Independence Day speech from that movie. Get up.
Like, if you wanted to do this in our game, for instance, if you're like, all right, cool, and I'd be like, all right, I can see what you're doing, but I'll let you go for it. You know,
we'll entertain this
at least once. I mean, your bag of ball bearings and the Thunderwave trick, you know,
that worked.
It'll work a couple times.
Sure.
You know, I'll let you get away with that once in a while, but will it work every time? Probably not.
Right.
But yeah, if you want to do this art game, I'd be like, all right, you've got like once I'll let you do this, maybe twice, but like if you start doing it every time,
right,
it's like it's gonna. We're gonna have a chat.
Yeah. To that end, though, I will note that the ball bearings with the Thunderwave functionally really didn't do anything in the combat. The Thunderwave had already taken out the orcs.
Yeah.
We just realized later, oh shit, I just put 1,000 ball bearings down on the ground, and Thunderwave technically pushes objects away with a certain level of force. I guess that blew out all the windows, didn't it?
Yeah.
My makeshift shotgun.
You made a shotgun.
I made an
In theory, you would figure out exactly like what force would that shoot those out with.
Right. And I don't actually think, like, by rules as written, I don't think it actually does that much, because I think it's supposed to push like 10 feet away or something, individual objects.
Each one of the ball bearings would do like a point of damage bludgeoning, but you've also got 1,000
of them.
It's 1,000 of them. So it's like, do they all count as 1 point?
Yeah. Exactly. What happens if I take one of those ball bearings and it happens to hit somebody and then I use heat metal on the ball bearing?
You just heat metal bag of ball bearings and
then just chuck it. You just chuck it.
There's molten ball bearings.
Molten ball bearings.
Someone.
Yep. Just send them on out. Whee!
Look at these nice crispy holes going through that dragon. Well.
Yes. This is what you... I think I could set this up. Okay, so I cast heat metal on the bag of ball bearings. Then, use Thunder Wave on the bag of ball bearings. Ball bearings go everywhere. Hits a whole bunch of creatures. Then, you can use your bonus action. The next round, you use your Thunder Wave, and then you use your bonus action to instigate the effect of the heat metal again. And then everything that's touching one of those ball bearings does like 3d8 fire damage, no save.
So in that case, what I would dictate as DM is the moment you cast heat metal on the ball bearings, they just fuse together.
Perfect. Then I have one giant ass ball bearing.
One giant ball bearing.
Great ball of fire.
Yeah.
Perfect. But yeah. So hey, there's something fun that you could try instead. Hey, you know what? If you have the bag of holding, see if you could just send a bag of ball bearings through it and see what happens to me. It was a bag of ball bearings the whole time. Somebody did a transmutation spell on it or something.
There you go.
Yeah, it's fun.
The old switcheroo.
Yeah.
You just get a big bad guy. A bad guy who just starts doing that, nuking towns with bags of holding.
Yeah, this is what you have brought upon this world.
Yeah, see what you've done?
Yeah, you should feel bad. You should.
You should feel bag.
Yes. I'm of the mindset, at least for me, if I were running a game, to say that I'll let you try anything, but it's not just a walk. You're gonna have to have, like, the idea, like you were saying, about, like, charisma saving throws, or I have to pay the peasants in order to do the railgun, or the idea that we have to make saving throws, or we have to do checks to figure out if you succeed at having this thing happen, because it's very impractical or improbable that this would just work. Just putting those in place. And hey, if everything aligns, and the players are still able to pull it off, terrific, but they've had to earn it. They've had to work for it before they can just do it. Yeah.
This goes to the example of that time I played WFRP, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and I was a gunslinger and knew gunsmithing, and one of the other players, I think was a gold mage, so they knew how to, like, their magic revolved around, like, metalworking and that stuff, so they ended up, with all the money we had, ended up making a gold tank.
Yeah.
And we between the two of us, we made a railgun.
Mm-hmm.
Because I knew gunsmithing and they knew, goldsmithing and gold magic. So casting lightning through this, gun made of gold as an electromagnet just made it so it was a freaking railgun.
Nice.
And the DM's like, we rolled for it, and he's like, yeah, you can do it.
Yep.
We were also, I think, playing an adaptation of Tomb of Horrors for that.
Oh, okay.
It was going to be silly anyways. But he's like, yeah, so you've got this giant golden tank, and it's got a railgun and a cannon on it.
Yeah.
Good times.
Tomb of Horrors always sounded like an interesting time.
Sure. Also playing with nerdy engineering students.
Perfect.
We'll do that to your games.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I do like the idea, though, that the engineering behind it is, technically you could do pretty much anything, but, yeah, we're gonna have to figure this out a little bit before we just go ahead and do it. Like, there's gotta be some work, some planning going in. Let me get a blueprint out before we do this. So, there you go. So, I guess, for that particular thing, I guess we would say that, there are some ways around it without totally compromising it. Yeah.
But I feel like the best answer is to talk to your player.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or have the other players, if they find this to be an issue as well, because suddenly they're not really doing anything. They're just watching this guy drop nukes. It's like you're taking the agency away from them as well. So it's not just about you, it's about the game.
Yeah.
And if your player persists, then maybe they're not the right player for your party.
Yeah. Yeah, someone did write back that I just wouldn't do it actually for the same reasons no one plays Coffee Lock. Yeah, at some point we'll talk about the Coffee Lock, but not.
I don't know that one, but it sounds like fun.
Oh yeah, well I'll look it up. There's a video I can show you before we do it.
Good. Coffee Lock sounds fun.
Yeah, it's delicious and also game breaking. But it's
great. My two favorite things.
So anyway, but that's for another time. Anyway, what do you all think? I'll be interested to hear your comments either over in our Discord channel, or you can also catch us on socials. I think that our 2 bags of holding have finally run out, and it's time for us to end here.
Our bags of holding have runneth empty.
There's nothing in there. You're gonna crawl into that bag of holding and take a nap.
Yeah, because if you crawl into a bag of holding, you're pretty much set until the air runs out. It can hold a lot of air.
That's true. Or if someone breaks the bag.
Yeah, then you're screwed.
Yeah. Bye. Anyway, Alex, if people could find out more information about Total Pebble Knockdown, where could they go?
You can pull our name out of a bag of holding and find us over at TotalPebbleKnockdown.com.
While you are there, feel free to click on the Patreon banner. You will get full video episodes of the show before the individual ones ever come out, or the podcast for that matter, as well as some of the extra stuff that we talk about that doesn't really go out to air. The crap we don't use. Anyway.
Good stuff.
The good stuff. Good stuff in quotation marks. You can also find us over on our Discord channel. It's a public Discord, and if you happen to be listening on one of the many podcast apps that allows you to actually rate and review or subscribe, please do those things. If you are on Anchor, please leave a voice clip with any questions that you might have. We might use them on the show. And you can also find us on social media. I am at Titanium.
I am at EXP Limited, and our show is over at Pebble Knockdown.
And so you can get all the latest updates and news over there. Well, regarding the show. Not anything
like
else.
That.
Yeah.
All the spoiler-free content.
All the spoiler-free content. Yeah. We're going to become just a spoiler channel. We just spoil stuff for everybody.
Great.
We should
dislike ratio will be off the charts.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Nuke it into the ground with bags of holding.
Yes, exactly. That's okay. No, don't put Matt Mercer in a bag of holding. Don't do that.
Can't breathe in there. Come on, let him out.
No. Just don't do it, folks. It's not good etiquette. Bring pizza instead.
Yes.
Not bags of holding.
Take the pizza out of the bag of holding. It will still be hot.
Ooh, there's a good idea. I can't wait to get like the pizza delivery service in Dungeons and Dragons, where you just put all the pieces in a bag of holding and you just take it with you.
I've got an idea for a business venture now.
Yep. Yeah, we're good. P&P.
Bag of holding food delivery.
Yep. Yeah. Pizza and pepperoni. Or pizza and pavilions. There's our new... If we were trying to figure out one of the businesses that we could actually have in a... yeah, okay.
It's a to-go restaurant using the spell that lets you create a tiny hut.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So you bring the
food
restaurant
truck
with you. I mean, it's a food cottage.
Yeah, it's a food cottage. You can set up.
You bring the restaurant with you, you cast a spell, put the restaurant down, and then, assuming it's got all the amenities of a house in there.
Yeah.
I don't know what the spell says. You can then go in and cook. And you can make food, and then bring it out and sell it.
Yeah, you could...
Moves town to town.
Yeah, you could do like a bonfire spell or something so that you could cook in there.
I'm gonna research this when I'm not sleepy.
There's the only thing that I would say about Tiny Hut is that actually this is kind of good for security reasons, and also to keep your secret ingredients, is that there can be a number of creatures, up to I want to say 10, that have to be inside the hut so that they can move freely inside or out. So anyone who isn't currently there for the 8 hours that it's active can't. Oh. And if you cast the spell, I don't think you can leave, or it goes away. So,
have to look into it.
You would have to have everybody else do the running. You do the cooking who made the tiny hut. And you can stay in there as long as you want. But the other characters can leave. So there's something. Anyway, that's our new business venture in game. And hey, Max has tiny hut. I can do tiny hut.
No, Max can't do it. I'm making a character that revolves around this one thing.
You're gonna have a chef.
Yes.
There was this really, what was it on XP to level 3? He was looking over the worst subclasses, homebrew subclasses, and one of them was a garlic bread cleric. I feel like you could just use that, like the whole thing revolved around making garlic bread to heal your characters. I'm like, you could work with that. We could probably make that work. It'd be good. You need a chef archetype for one of these. That'd be great.
I'll figure it out later.
Yeah. Make a chef druid. That'd be great.
Maybe not. Anyways, until next time.
Thank you for joining us. We will see you on the next episode of Total Pebble Knockdown. Goodbye for now.
Bye!